Yes, hello, welcome fitness friends. Welcome to the live stream. We're going to be talking about the benefits of intermittent fasting, time restricted feeding. I kind of designed this thing with a slideshow, mostly for beginners. But we'll do a Q&A at the end. And also I want to apologize for the late start. I wanted to start at 4 o'clock. I got down here and for some reason I could not get the sound to work. But I figured it out. It took me an extra 10 minutes, so sorry about that. So if you're out there, I think we got a few people already in the live stream. Just give me a thumbs up if the sound is good, if the picture's good. If there's any problems, let me know. But if you're out there, give me a thumbs up. Also, any questions, just ask your questions. I can pull them into the live stream so everyone can read the questions and we can all learn together. And then don't worry, at the end, we're going to do a nice long Q&A on fitness, health, weight loss, whatever you want to talk about. But let's jump right into it and let's talk about basically what is intermittent fasting. And it's really simple. It pretty much is just a pattern where you cycle between eating and not eating. Like, for example, when you go to sleep at night, right, as long as you don't wake up and eat, you're in a fasted state. You wake up, you have breakfast, you're breaking your fast. Okay, we got Gina. Oh, thanks, Gina. We got a thumbs up from Gina saying that the sound and picture's good, which is great. And also, it's also really fun. I love to find out and hear where everyone is from. It's amazing with these live streams. I have people from Ireland. I got people from all over the world, joining the live stream. So if you don't mind, let me know where you're from. It's fun for everyone to see that. Okay, Gina, where's Gina from? Gina's from Finger Lakes. Whoa, very cool, really nice, beautiful there. Okay, so let's first go over basically like what's the difference between intermittent fasting and time restricted eating. And it pretty much has to do with just the word. Intermittent fasting means that you're going to be doing these fasting protocols intermittently, like not every single day. For example, one of the most popular ways to do intermittent fasting or time restricted eating is to do a 16-8, where you're fasting for 16 hours and then taking in all your calories within an 8-hour eating window. And you'll see the next slide, I'm going to go through a whole bunch of different fasting protocols. I explain the whole thing. But for example, 16-8. Now, if you did 16-8 every single day, not intermittently, I would call that time-restricted feeding or time-restricted eating. So if you do these type of fasting practices every day, time-restricted feeding, time-restricted eating, but if you do them intermittently, I would call that intermittent fasting. And there really is pros and cons to both. And that's what we're really going to get into, in this live stream. Heading home to New Jersey, Gina said. Let me just show you how this works too. See, I can pull in these all your comments, which is great, so everyone else can see them. I appreciate you showing up, Gina. I know you also, leave comments on the YouTube channel, which I really appreciate. Okay, so we kind of reviewed this slide. Let's go over to the next slide, and let's go over like all these different types of intermittent fasting, all the different ways you can do intermittent fasting. This is most of the most common ones. And then the next slide, we're going to go down into pretty great detail, all the benefits of practicing intermittent fasting, like the weight loss and the health improvements you can get from being in a fasted state. But let's go over what I think is a real easy way to get started with intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, which is just doing a 12 to a 14-hour fast. I know it's amazing. Most people really do eat 15, 16 hours within a day. So in my opinion, if you're fasting for even 12 hours, that means, you go to sleep at night, you don't wake up and have a little snack, you like delay breakfast a little bit, maybe have dinner a little bit earlier, I think you'll get a lot of benefits of being in a fasted state. So that would be like maybe one of the easier ways to get started with intermittent fasting. And you can do that once, 2, 3 times a week. If you decide to do it every single day, that will be time-restricted eating. Okay. And then this is probably the most popular one, which we discussed previously, which is a 16-8, where you're fasting for 16 hours, taking in all your calories within an 8-hour eating window. That's probably the most popular. This is probably my favorite, which I seem to settle into most of the time, which is an 18-6, where you're fasting for 18 hours and then taking in all your calories within a 6-hour eating window. And we're going to talk about it more, but there is a little bit more benefit to being in a fasted state for an extra couple of hours. Get a little more fat burning, maybe to deplete a little bit more stored energy, like a little bit of stored glycogen in your muscle. But we're going to talk about that in more detail. I also like a 24. This is a little bit more aggressive, where you're fasting for 20 hours, taking in all your calories within a 4-hour eating window. That's a real popular one. And then there's the Omad, the 1 meal a day diet, where you fast for 20, 22, or maybe even traditionally people would do this for 23 hours and then taking all the calories in like one big meal with a 1 or 2 hour eating window. And then another popular one is a 24-hour fast. Obviously, this would not be time-restricted eating or time-restricted feeding because you can't fast for 24 hours every single day indefinitely, right? So this would be something you would do intermittently, like a 24-hour fast. Some people might call that alternate day fasting, where you eat every other day. But alternate day fasting could be defined in a number of different ways. Some studies look at alternate day fasting like it is a 24-hour fast. Other studies look at it like you're doing a 36-hour fast. You know, you're going those extra hours, but you're still eating every other day. And then I also like to always throw in there 2 meals a day. Even if you're eating breakfast and even if you're eating dinner and skipping lunch, in my opinion, that's still a form of intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating because you're giving yourself those big windows of not eating. Okay, now let's talk about some of the pros and cons. Like, why would you do intermittent fasting as opposed to time-restricted eating? See, I traditionally, I want to know if traditionally is the best word, but me and my wife have been doing this for over 12 years, and I've experimented with all the different protocols. And in the past, maybe in the past few years, I like to vary my intermittent fasting strategy, meaning that like one day I would like to do, say, a 16-8. Then maybe the next day I'd like to do maybe a 20-hour fast. And then the third day I might fast for 24 hours. Then the fourth day I might not fast at all. And the reason why I like that in the past is that it made me cycle my calories automatically without necessarily counting calories and trying. So for example, obviously if I'm doing a 24-hour fast, I'm having no calories that day. Then the next day, if I'm doing a 16-hour fast, I'd be eating more. See, that's really good for your metabolism. Because in my opinion, and research will back this up, it's not good to be in like a restricted calorie state for extended periods of time. Like, it's not good to restrict calories, in my opinion, for months on end. Because it's something called metabolic adaptation, where whenever you lose weight, your metabolism is going to slow down to some degree. Because you're smaller, it's a way of survival. You don't need as many calories. But if you're constantly in a calorie deficit aggressively for months on end, you're going to over-exaggerate to slow down your metabolism. So that's one reason why I like to cycle my calories by changing my fasting strategy from day to day. So for example, on a day that I'm doing 16-8, I'm probably, me personally, say I would probably be at maintenance calories, right? Whereas on a day where I'm doing a 20-hour fast and maybe eating one small meal and one larger meal, I'll be in a calorie deficit. And that was a great way for me on how I would control my weight. And I really recommend that to so many of my clients. I really like varying your fasting strategy so you automatically cycle your calories. And if you look at like bodybuilders and physique athletes, these people who go on stage, you get the very, very low body fat levels, they all cycle their calories. They really, they restrict calories. They have things called cheat days, or just days where they up their calories to maintenance so the metabolism doesn't slow down too much. Plus, I also think it's a great way of not overdoing these fasting strategies when you're constantly changing and cycling your calories up and down. You don't want to become malnourished. You don't want to be low on vitamins and minerals and nutrients. It's happened to me before. It's happened to clients of mine before where they overdo it. For example, say they decide to do an Omad diet, only eat one meal a day. To me, that's a short-term strategy. I think you can do an Omad diet intermittently, maybe 2 or 3 times a week. But if you decide you're going to only eat one meal a day, every single day, which would be time-restricted eating, I think is a short-term strategy. You can do really well with it, maybe for, say, a month, 4 or 5 weeks, but then after the end of 4 or 5 weeks, I'd want you to take a diet break, maybe eat at least 2 meals a day, maybe do something like a 16-8, up your calories to maintenance. Heading to do a walk, Rose. Oh, thanks, Rose. But I appreciate you tuning in. Now, maybe this might be a little bit of a repeat. It's kind of like a beginner course. I know a lot of people who follow me on YouTube, kind of have watched a lot of my intermittent fasting videos and time-restricted eating videos. This is kind of like a little bit more for beginners, but I appreciate you showing up, Rose. Thanks. Okay. Now let's talk about like why you might want to do time-restricted feeding. Well, for example, if you want to like aggressively lose some weight, I think you can do it for like shorter periods of time. More aggressive strategies for intermittent fasting. Like say you want to, like I just said, say you want to only eat one meal a day for 4 weeks. You do it every single day. you drop a decent amount of weight, you take a diet break, and then maybe go to a 16-8 intermittently, right? Or maybe you can do a 16-8 and just be really conscious of taking in enough calories, enough vitamins, enough minerals, enough good nutrition within your 8-hour or 6-hour eating window. Then I think you can do time restricted feeding every day, every single day. See, there's a famous doctor, actually my last video a video I did two videos ago talked about circadian rhythm. This is the big advantage, in my opinion, of doing like the same type of fasting strategy every single day. See, a lot of people feel that to stay with your normal circadian rhythm, and your circadian rhythm is your normal internal body clock, like your 24-hour clock. Like you wake up in the morning, sunlight hits your eyes, right? You start your day, you start your 24-hour clock. And a lot of people feel, and there's a doctor who specializes there called Dr. Panda. He feels that people should pretty much eat at the same time of day all the time. They should wake up the same time of day. They should go to sleep the same time of day, because it really stays and sets your 24-hour clock, your circadian rhythm. So he would rather people do more of a consistent, say, time restricted feeding or fasting schedule. Like say you were doing a 16-8 and you're breaking your fast, say 10 o'clock in the morning, and you have your last meal, say 6 o'clock in the evening. He would want you to consistently do that. And I do understand that. See, right now I am experimenting with that. See, the last year or two I've been doing more of those intermittent fasting strategies where I've been changing every day. But for the last 2 weeks, this is what I've been doing. And I have to say, I'm sleeping really well. I really like it. There has been some research, it's like in the last year or two, saying that it's important when it comes to like maintaining muscle mass and hypertrophy to take in protein a little bit earlier in the day. See, typically whenever I did these fasting strategies, I'd like to skip breakfast. I'm not hungry in the morning. I own a gym. I'm busy training people first thing in the morning. I like to have dinner with my wife, and when my kids were home from school, we'd have dinner in the evening. So I always skip breakfast. But I've experimented with it, and what I've been doing the last couple of weeks is I've been kind of doing this hack where I've been taking an essential amino acid supplement, which has no calories, which pretty much won't break my fast. And I've been taking that at 10 in the morning to make sure I'm getting in protein a little bit earlier in the day. Then I pretty much work out around 11, 12 o'clock, and then I break my fast. I've been breaking my fast around 1:30, 2 o'clock almost every single day, and then I'm having my dinner at my typical time, which is 7 in the evening. So I'm doing two MAD, I'm eating 2 meals a day, right? I am taking those amino acids and I'm getting proteins in my system early in the day, so I'm getting the benefits of taking in protein early, even though I'm not getting any calories. And I'm sticking to a time-restricted eating, or some people call it time-restricted feeding schedule, where I'm trying to stay within my normal circadian rhythm based on the new research and based on a lot of Dr. Panda's new work. But I've been doing this for 2 weeks, and I have to say, I really like it. I think I am even sleeping a little bit better. But we'll see. I'll probably do this for a few weeks. I'll do a video about it. I've been doing videos like once on Mondays, releasing like my fasting strategy for that week. If you want to check them out, you know they're on the channel. If you want, I'll link them below this live video. Once we're over, and I'm gonna do it for one more week. I may do it even for a whole month, where I'm doing the essential aminos 10 o'clock, eating around 1:32, dinner around 7:30 before 8 o'clock. Every single day. I'm probably do that for a solid month, and then I'll readjust. See, I've been counting calories my whole life, and I used to be really into bodybuilding, so I'm really good at keeping an eye on if I'm eating too much or too little. So one of the other reasons why I like to recommend people changing their intermittent fasting strategies to go into a calorie deficit and out of a calorie deficit without counting is, that's the big advantage of it. But for me, I can probably do a time-restricted feeding strategy and vary my calories, cycle my calories, because I just know how to do it so well. But if you're watching this and you're new to intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating, I would probably want you to do more of an intermittent fasting approach where you're changing your strategy from day to day and also taking days off. Like, for example, on a Monday, maybe do a 16-8, taking 3 meals with an 8-hour eating window. Then maybe on a Tuesday, why don't you try an 18-6 with only 2 meals? That means that'll be a day when you're in a calorie deficit. Maybe day 3, just take a day off. Don't fast at all. Make sure you're eating 3 good meals within, say, a 12-hour eating window, right? Day 4, maybe do a 20-hour fast and do I like that 1.5 meals in a 4-hour eating window. Have a small meal and then one larger meal, right? Maybe day 5 or 6, go back to a 16-8. I love that because you're going to automatically be cycling your calories. And also at the end of this live stream, I'm going to give you some specific example of what I consider to be a healthy diet, because all of this intermittent fasting, all the research is showing that it works even better when you're eating good, whole, natural food. Like I say, there's three ways in which you should control your weight and be healthy. One way is calories. You have to keep an eye on calories. That's at least a third of the equation for maintaining an optimal weight. You just can't eat too much. The second thing is food quality. You want to eat good, whole, natural foods. I lean more towards that low carb type approach. My feeling is most of your empty calories are going to be from processed carbohydrates. The cookies, the cakes, the junk food, right? Even the breads, the pastas, the rices, those foods are really void of nutrition. They have a little bit of nutrition, but not much. And then the third way is food timing. You have to go through periods when you're in a fasted state, so you dip into stored energy, right? Let's see. Gina has it. Okay, let's see what Gina's got. Okay, what is the purpose of essential amino acids? Essential amino acids, do they help burn fat, and how much is needed daily? Okay, it's a little bit hard to say how much. Like the brand that I take is 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂, which is Ben Greenfeld. It's somewhat a proprietary blend. What they mean by proprietary is that they don't reveal exactly how much, but I do trust him. I love his podcast. He does so much research. It's pretty much, in my opinion, going to be equating to maybe a 4-ounce serving of chicken, fish, or meat, which is about 25 grams of protein. See, the advantage of people used to take branched chain amino acids, but it's not as completely. The essential amino acids are all the proteins, the amino acids that your body can make on its own and you need to get from diet. But when you take them in supplement form, it's look at it you can almost visualize it like this. It's like you're eating a couple of eggs or you're eating a piece of fish, right? But you're not getting the calories. And you're only getting the proteins. You're only getting the amino acids, because that's what the new research is showing. I follow another guy who I love too, Andrew. How do you say his name? I think 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂 Lab. He has this great podcast. He's a professor from Stanford. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. I'll link it below this live stream as well. And he did a whole podcast on talking about what I'm talking. Now, he used to do what I did. He used to always skip breakfast, break his fast 12, 1 o'clock. And then have dinner 7, 8 o'clock at night. And then he, from all the new research talking about how important it is to take in protein earlier in the day, he switched over to breaking his fast at 10 in the morning and then taking in his last meal kind of earlier. But I heard he was having a hard time with it too. So I think this hack where you take the essential aminos, which won't break your fast at 10 o'clock and still, stick to that 6 to 8 hour eating window, I think for me, I'm trying to get the best of both worlds, and I'm doing a little bit of experiment now. I'm about 3 weeks into it. I'm going to do it for 1 more week, and then I'll make a whole video about it. And another thing that's really interesting, like looking over Dr. Panda's work about circadian rhythm, and I talked about this in a video I did a couple times ago. Even though he wants people to eat earlier in the day, he does not want you to eat as soon as you wake up in the morning. He wouldn't want you to wake up at 6 and then have breakfast at 6:30. And even if you're done at 2 in the afternoon. And this is why, which is kind of interesting. I never understood why he said this. And then I did a lot of reading on his website. And this is what he said. He said, when you're sleeping at night, melatonin levels, which is kind of the sleep hormone, it makes you fall asleep, is elevated. It helps you fall asleep. It helps you stay asleep. But when you wake up in the morning, let's say you wake up at 6 in the morning, Dr. Panda would say, even though there were those morning hormones, which is cortisol, that's the hormone that helps you wake up, releases carbohydrates into the bloodstream to help you wake up. Even though that's happening to some degree, melatonin levels are still relatively high as soon as you wake up in the morning. And he says that when melatonin levels are high, melatonin is going to affect your pancreas, like your organ. That's the organ that releases, insulin, which is the storage hormone, which helps lower blood sugar. It also helps you process, protein, fats, and carbs. The pancreas does so much. He would tell you that if you wake up at first thing in the morning and eat, he thinks your pancreas is still sleepy due to melatonin. So he would want you to wait about 90 minutes to 2 hours before having your first meal. So melatonin levels go down, cortisol levels go up, and you're much better able to process the meal you're eating, which is kind of interesting. Probably the ideal way to do, say, a time-restricted eating, a time-restricted feeding would be like to eat maybe 2 hours after you wake, then give yourself, say, an 8-hour eating window, have your last meal. So say you 8 o'clock, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, have your last meal at 4 o'clock, and then be done for the day. You'll probably sleep well. You'll stay with your normal circadian rhythm. That does not fit into my schedule, because I love eating dinner with my wife. Around 7 o'clock, 7:30. She's back done from work around then. It doesn't work for me. That's why I'm trying the essential aminos at 10, and breaking my fast around 1 or 2, and then having my last meal around 7:30. And I'm doing, like I said earlier, I'm going to do it every day for a month, and I'll do a little video about it, see how I feel. And then either I'll stick with that, or I may take a diet break for a week, or I might go back to just doing more of an intermittent fasting approach where I'm changing my strategy every day. Okay, I guess maybe I talked about this too much, but if you have any questions, let me know. But let's kick into this next slide. I guess this was the gist of what this live stream is supposed to be about today. All the benefits of intermittent fasting or time-restricted eating. So let's go over all the benefits, and they really are numerous. In my last live stream, I don't know if you watched it, I referenced 7 different studies, and I have to say I put about 20 hours of work into that live stream. You didn't see it because the live stream was an hour long, but I must have read 24 studies. I picked 7 of my favorite ones, and it's kind of a little bit about this, kind of backing up all the different benefits of intermittent fasting. But obviously, like 1 and 2 are somewhat interchangeable. It's a great way to reduce calories and to burn body fat. And it can be a little counterintuitive. Like, for example, when someone first starts a 16-8, like say you've never fasted before, and you say, you know what, I'm gonna only give myself an 8-hour eating window. Before you do that, most people might think that you're actually you're gonna binge it, you're gonna eat more food within the 8-hour eating window. But that's not what research shows, and it's not my experience, and I've helped hundreds of people with this intermittent fasting. Most people just eat less. Like if you give yourself an 8-hour eating window, you're gonna be restricting calories, you're gonna be reducing calories, and that's one obvious way in which you're gonna lose weight. Also, just think, it's either, when you're eating food and the pancreas is releasing insulin to lower blood sugar, and you're storing away excess calories, it's really difficult for your body to burn body fat. So you really have to go through periods of the day when you've processed all the food you've just eaten and you're in a fasted state, and then you're going to start burning stored energy. You're going to start burning stored carbohydrates that are stored in your muscle and your liver. You're going to start burning fat when you're in a fasted state. But even, I would say one of the big benefits of intermittent fasting is calorie restriction, but there are studies. Even Dr. Panda has a great study. It's a study on mice, though, that talks about how he gave one group of mice the same exact amount of calories as another group of mice. The only difference is one group of mice ate within an 8-hour eating window. The other group ate within a 24-hour nonstop, but same amount of calories. The mice that restrict the calories burned more body fat, lost more weight. And there are human studies as well. I reference this study all the time. There was a study done on weightlifters who ate. One group of weightlifters had 3 meals within an 8-hour eating window. The other group of weightlifters had their 3 meals more traditional, like 8 in the morning, lunch, dinner. Same amount of calories, same amount of protein, same amount of fat. And the group that restricted their eating window, weightlifters, lost much more body weight, lost much more body fat. So I think this definitely is something to food timing, no doubt. When you're in a fasted state, when there's no food in your system, what can you burn? You burn stored energy. And there's even a lot of experts believe, and I believe too, that it seems to go after the worst type of fat when you're in a fasted state. There's all different types of fat in your body, right? There's that subcutaneous fat. You know, the fat that you can jiggle on your belly or jiggle on your arm, right? There's also the worst type of fat, which is the visceral fat. That's that deep, deep organ fat. You know, do you ever see, unfortunately, people with really large midsections, and it's kind of that hard fat? That's the fat around your organs. That's the fat that's linked to metabolic syndrome, like the high blood pressure, the high cholesterol, the fatty liver disease, the diabetes, things like that. And it seems that there is some evidence that fasting, being a fasted state, doing these fasting protocols, does go after the visceral fat, which is the worst fat. And there's actually brown fat, which is the good fat, the metabolic fat on your body. That's why people do those cold showers. There may even be some evidence that fasting may help a little bit. Working out definitely helps with the brown fat. But definitely one of the major benefits of intermittent fasting is definitely weight loss and really fat loss, losing fat. So that would encompass the first two. And this is a really big one. This is what I think is one of the biggest reasons why you may want to fight. Hey, Gene, let's see how Gene's doing. Hey, Gene, how you doing? Hey, Mike. For weight maintenance, how do you feel about simply eating 3 meals a day in a 12-hour eating window with no snacks between meals? I think that's a great strategy. You know what? Okay, it's interesting. I had some people misinterpret this when I say it, but I have this thing called like the 90% rule. And this is what I mean by the 90% rule. Whatever like diet you decide to go on, or whatever like workout routine you want to start, you have to know that you're 90% sure that you're going to do it. See, some people misinterpret it. They say, Mike, that's so harsh. I can only mess up 10% of the time. I'm not really saying that. I'm saying that whatever strategy you pick, and Gene, that's why I like that strategy so much, because I do think that's really doable. Like if you say to yourself, if you tell me, Gene, I am 90% sure that you can do that 12-hour eating window, which is pretty reasonable, 3 meals, no snacks, and you're 90% sure you're going to do it, I think you'll do great. I think it's a great way to start. Do it for like 4 to 6 weeks. I'm sure you're going to drop some body fat. I'm sure you'll be really happy because it's really doable. Like there's so many times when people, like when a new client comes to my gym, I do this whole evaluation with them and we go through all their goals, and I generally give them, before they leave, they're generally there like the first time someone comes to my gym, they're there like 90 minutes, sometimes even 2 hours. I always black out like 2 hours for a new client. And, and I always give them like a whole routine before they leave. I want to give them something like, this is what I want you to do. And and then I always ask this question right before they leave the gym. I say, okay, now that we've gone over, let me ask you this. Are you 90% sure you can do this routine that we just designed for yourself? Are you are you going to do it? What do you think? And I have to say, about 50% of the time, most people say, Mike, I don't know if I can do it. It may be too much. And they say, okay, there's nothing wrong with that. Let's just figure it out. Let's make it simpler. So whatever you decide to do, I just want you to do it. Don't make it too hard. I really think 3 meals, 12-hour eating window. Obviously, Gene, we're going to talk about it at the end of this live stream. I'm going to pick up some meals. I don't know if you follow me on Instagram. You probably do. I'll go through the type of diet I like, the type of meals I would like you to eat for those 3 meals, which is going to be like a low-carb, whole natural food type diet, and that you will do incredibly well. I think that's a great way to start, for sure. Okay, so let's talk about insulin sensitivity. To me, this is one of the biggest benefits of being in a fasted state. Back to just a little bit of science again. Like whenever you eat food, okay, let's say you're having, like a steak with a sweet potato and some broccoli, a reasonable meal, right? Whatever calories you're not burning like while you're eating that food, obviously where those excess calories go, they get stored away, right? So the pancreas produces insulin, which is the storage hormone, to store away the excess calories from that meal, right? Carbohydrates go in your muscles and your liver, right? Fat go into fat cells, and there's fat in the muscle as well. Insulin also helps with protein synthesis, like a lot of good things. You're in like a growth phase, right? The insulin helps. That's why bodybuilders inject insulin so they get bigger muscles. The protein from the steak, the amino acids are going to be used to, rebuild the body. So just think, if you're eating, say, 1,200 calories in that meal, you're not going to burn them right then. They get stored away. See, the problem is that when people are constantly eating all day long, like snacking every hour grab a little something. That's why I like what Gene says about just 3 meals a day, no snacks. I think is great. But if you're snacking, even eating the same amount of calories, but every 2 hours, every 15 minutes, you'll grab a cookie, even something good, you grab a carrot, but you're constantly spiking insulin, and say you're eating too many calories as well, and you've been doing this for a decade or more, you can become, unfortunately, insulin resistant, meaning that your cells, this whole system, is not working properly. Maybe your muscles and liver are full with carbohydrates because they can only hold so much, right? So insulin just can't work. This is how people become, diabetic. Type 2 diabetes is the pancreas is cranking out this insulin, but it's just not lowering blood sugar like the way it should, like the way it used to. There's no place to put these calories. They were converted into body fat. It raises triglycerides. You want it with fatty liver disease. That's one of the amazing things about fasting, is that when you're in a fasted state, insulin levels are incredibly low. So fasting increases your insulin sensitivity. So when you do eat and your pancreas does produce insulin, it's going to work. That's one of the big advantages, I think. Even when calorie restriction does that too. Well, when you're restricting calories, you're increasing your insulin sensitivity. But research is showing, and studies have shown, and my personal opinion is, and a lot of experts believe, that fasting works better than even restricting calories when it comes to increasing insulin sensitivity. Okay, so let's see what Gene's got to say here. Okay, so Gene wants to know, I'm eating eggs and bacon and sometimes bulletproof coffee. Okay, bulletproof coffee is, I don't know if anyone follows Dave Asprey. I just read one of his, he just wrote a new book on intermittent fasting. It was a pretty cool book. Good book. He liked varying fasting strategies from day to day. That was the big takeaway from the book, I felt. Okay, but so far I've been able to cut breads, delicious pasta from lunch and dinner. Okay, look at it like this. First of all, I think your breakfast is good. So you're going with like a protein, fat type breakfast, bulletproof, which is great. All I would say is that if you can first, don't drive yourself crazy. Do what you're doing. Don't even cut out the bread. Don't even cut out the pasta. First, create some momentum by just doing those 12-hour fasts like you talk about, 3 meals a day. Do that for a couple of weeks and don't worry too much about the diet. Create momentum. I bet you're still going to be a few pounds lighter in a couple of weeks. And then after a couple of weeks, when you've got some momentum behind you, just do your best you possibly can to try to eliminate those empty calories slowly but steady. Instead of having 3 slices of bread, have 2.5. And slowly get rid of those empty carbs, increase the vegetables, have things like the avocados, 2 different color vegetables for dinner. Instead of having a big bowl of pasta, make the pasta a little bit smaller. Just slowly cut back and replace. But truthfully, you might even just be happy and be consistently losing weight, doing the 12-hour fast, 3 meals a day, not even changing your diet too much. Let's see how it goes. Definitely report back to me. Okay, let's go to benefit number 4. Yeah, definitely. Research has shown lowered blood pressure. Systolic blood pressure fasting, great way to lower blood pressure. There's also some great hormonal benefits of being in a fasted state, such as elevated human growth hormone. It gets a little bit tricky because some of the best, like there's counter-regulatory hormones when you're in a fasted state. And it kind of makes sense. Just things, let's say you've been fasting for 24 hours. It seems like when people fast, they don't necessarily lose muscle mass. You can overdo it. Like if you're doing, like say alternate day fasting every single day for like a really long time, and you're getting like malnourished, obviously you can lose muscle mass. But if you're doing a 24-hour fast now and then, intermittently, once or twice a week, I don't think you will at all. And actually, there are some research showing that human growth hormone actually goes up, and I think it's somewhat of a protective mechanism. You see, it seems like these counter-regulatory hormones like cortisol and those hormones that elevate your metabolism and human growth hormones seem to kick in a little bit after you've been fasting for about 24 hours. And there was some good research that's showing that it does increase hormones, which helps maintain muscle mass. So I think fasting is a good thing for hormones. Definitely a lot of great evidence that it lowers triglycerides, and it works in a couple of different ways. Look at it like this. Triglycerides go up when your liver is full of carbohydrates and you keep on eating more carbs, meaning that your liver can only hold, say, 50 to 100 grams of carbohydrates. And the worst type of carbohydrates that go right to the liver is fructose, like high fructose corn syrup, like things like that. And it's not that, it's pretty easy to fill up your liver with 400 calories of carbohydrates like fructose and things like that. It's like overwhelms the liver. And then any excess carbs you're eating are going to be converted into triglycerides. That's what gives you the bad cholesterol. Like in my opinion, the two numbers you want to be most conscious of with cholesterol is you want those HDLs, the high density lipoproteins, to be high, and you want your triglycerides to be low. Like it'd be great if your triglycerides were lower or at least equal to your HDLs. Most people, the exact opposite. Triglycerides are like 150 or up, way too high. And the high density lipoproteins, their HDLs are like 50 or maybe even less. I mean, that's the worst. It can't get complicated, cholesterol, because particle size and there are, your typical blood work doesn't look into it as well as, if you have issues with cholesterol, definitely talk to your cardiologist about it. Ask them for the expanded blood work. You want to know particle size. Some people feel that if the LDL, the bad type cholesterol, if the particle size is very large and plump, they're not going to cause heart disease or things like that. It's somewhat of a debatable thing. I like to stay in my lane, but I definitely find that, and research has shown that being in a fasted state depletes the stored carbohydrates in your muscle and your liver. Just think, it's emptying out your liver of carbohydrates, which is going to help you lower triglycerides. A relatively low carb diet, in my opinion, is one of the best ways to lower triglycerides. Let's see. Hey, we got another question here. Okay, I've been doing Omad and keto for a few months now. I train 5 times a week, and I'm currently experiencing a plateau. I feel that my fasting is, I understand what you're saying. This is what I probably think has happened to you. I think you've probably been restricting, with keto, it's easier to do Omad and take in a reasonable amount of calories. Because of a lot of your calories, or most of your calories, obviously are coming from fat, it's easier to eat like one big meal and take in like 2,000 calories or 2,500 calories, as opposed to if you're just eating more of a regular, like low carb type diet. It's hard because but that being said, you might not be getting in enough protein. I know a lot of people who do keto are concerned that protein is going to knock them out of ketosis, and it might, and it can. But if you're training 5 times a week and you're doing Omad, I think a few things might be going on. You might not be getting enough protein, right? You might not be taking in enough calories. I think I would probably like you to take a diet break, for sure. Take a couple weeks off. I have done a ketogenic diet. I do it, and every now and then I'll do it intermittently. I do consider myself somewhat fat adapted. I'm more of a low carb eater. Like I generally stay into like I'll eat 100 grams of carbs a day of mostly vegetables and things like that. I do pop in and out of ketosis. Like if you're telling me the main reason why you're doing this is you want to be in ketosis, I may tell you something a little different. But if you're going to the gym or working out 5 days a week, you feel like you hit a plateau. My rule for protein is minimum 0.9 grams per pound of lean body weight. So for example, you're 150 pounds. Say you're 20% body fat, you want to take in like 115, 120 grams of protein. I personally go 1 gram. Like I take in at least maybe 150 grams of protein a day, and I eat a kind of a low carb. So I probably either want to take a diet break, up your protein, maybe do more of like a low carb type thing, maybe taking 100 grams of protein for a while, maybe do 2 MAD instead of 1 MAD for a couple of weeks. It's definitely going to boost up your metabolism to some degree, because there is that thermic effect of food, right? For every gram of protein you eat, like say you're taking 100 calories of protein, you're going to burn up 25-30% of those calories. That thermic effect, just digesting and processing that protein. So the fact that you've been doing keto, which is getting almost all your calories from fat, only eating 1 meal a day, maybe. And if I'm sure you've lost weight and now you hit a plateau, your metabolism maybe you had too much of that metabolic adaptation. Maybe your metabolism over exaggerated and you need to boost it up a little bit now. Try it. I'm not saying go high carb or anything like that, but maybe try eating 100 grams of carbs a day. Eat some vegetables. So maybe have a sweet potato. Maybe I'm a believer in resistant starches. I know some people don't. I know a couple of doctors do. I know Dr. Gundry likes resistant starches, but I watched the video from Dr. 𝘾𝙃𝙃𝙃 saying he doesn't believe it. Resistant starches means like when you take a starch, like a baked potato, like a white potato or white rice, and you refrigerate it for 24 hours overnight, and then you eat it the next day, it becomes somewhat resistant to digestion, so you're not getting quite as many carbs. You may want to fool around with something like that. And, you know, I'd take a diet break for a couple of weeks and see how you feel. I'd love to hear if you do. You know, leave a comment on one of my videos or drop me an email. I'd love to know how you do. Okay, let's see what Gene's got to say here. Okay, I'm thinking of adding 36-hour fast once a week for health. I have started diets so many times in my life on Mondays. Now I'm 99% sure I can do it with my eyes closed. I think that, you know, Gene, I don't want to say things, you know, because I know you've emailed me, and not emailed me, but you left some comments, but I know you have a good amount of weight to lose. So if you think you can do this 36-hour fast one day a week on Mondays, I think it would be great. And then on the other days, because that'll be a nice big calorie deficit for you. It'll help you with the insulin resistance. You're gonna deplete your glycogen storage. You're probably gonna empty out a lot of carbs out of your muscles, out of your liver. You might be in ketosis after like 30 hours or something, possibly. And maybe not if you're eating a lot of bread and pasta, but you're definitely gonna empty out your muscles with a lot of glycogen on a 36-hour fast. And then sticking to the 3 meals a day, 12-hour fast, I think that could really work for you long term. If you feel you can do it, I would do it. I think that sounds good. Okay. Oh, thanks, Michael, for the answer. I'll take note and we'll try it all. That sounds great. And let me know how you do if you decide to do it. I don't want to mess you up. Just think, what's a couple of weeks? You can always go back to what you're doing. But you hit a plateau, try it, and let me know if it works, for sure. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, now let's go to... Okay, so we covered triglycerides. Right? This is a big one. Okay, this is like autophagy. This gets a little confusing for people. So say autophagy is some people fast purely for autophagy. And autophagy is like cell cleansing, like weakened, damaged organelles get recycled and reprocessed in the body. And if you notice here, I have a little picture of mitochondria, like weakened, damaged mitochondria, like the powerhouse of the cells. All ATP is made, with the mitochondria, with the help of the mitochondria. You know, all muscle contraction is fueled by ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and the mitochondria is where this, all this stuff kind of happens. And autophagy is somewhat of a never-ending process, meaning that yes, fasting does help with autophagy, working out helps with autophagy, but it does happen all the time anyway. The little confusing thing is that no one quite knows exactly when it's like maximally upregulated. For example, if you're only fasting for 12 hours like Gene, you might get a little bit of autophagy, but it seems like most of the experts feel, and most of the research is showing that you got to start getting into those like 20, 24, 36-hour fast. Like, so Gene, on a 36-hour fast, you'll be getting a lot of autophagy. So a lot of people feel it's a key component to longevity, to living longer, like to eliminating these weak and damaged organelles. Like your body goes into repair mode. When you're constantly eating and you're in a state of abundance, you're always like building and growing. There's something called mTOR, like the growth signaling. When you're in a fasted state, you go into like repair mode. You're not in a state of abundance. Like your body says, you know what? There's not all these calories running around. Let me fix things. Let me become more insulin resistant. Let me upregulate autophagy. Let me fix these weak and damaged organelles. Let me fix these messed up mitochondria, right? That's one of the big benefits of fasting. And it seems like when it comes to autophagy, it's depending upon where you're starting from. Like if you go into a 24-hour fast and you'll be doing a ketogenic diet, and your muscles and liver are like really low in glycogen, maybe you'll upregulate autophagy from a 12-hour fast, right? But if your muscle and liver are full and it takes it's hard to say exactly when you're going to get the most benefit, but fasting is a great thing for autophagy, and it's one of some people only fast for that. Okay, let's talk about the next one. Okay, there are some studies that show that intermittent fasting reduces your cancer risk. And there's one famous study, I think I do him his name, but a researcher, she's a doctor. She did a study on women who had breast cancer and what health, were in remission, I guess you would say cured from breast cancer. And she took a group of the women and they followed some of the women, and the women who fasted for just 14 hours had a much dramatic, like reduced risk of reoccurrence of breast cancer. I think it was something like 67% less. I could be wrong on that. I did a video on this study, about 2 years ago, so it's not fresh in my head, but the whole gist of it was that women who fasted for 14 hours or more, and it's interesting, she did allow, in this study, she allowed women to have like no calorie type liquids like herbal teas and green teas in the evening. They had like a much less reoccurrence of breast cancer. And there's even some other, research out there. Like you can almost link the cancer. Like a lot of people feel autophagy helps. Like I say you have like weak cancer cells in your body, autophagy can help eliminate them, right? So, there are some real strong benefits to being in a fasted state. In my opinion, stronger than just restricting calories, for sure. And then inflammation is the big one. All diseases linked to inflammation. People, researchers showed whenever I'm reading these intermittent fasting, time-restricted eating, time-restricted feeding studies, there were so many different inflammatory markers. Now, you see reactive proteins, the common one you see in your blood work, but there were so many. Like if you read Dr. Gunji's book, he starts naming off all these inflammatory markers that he personally looks at, and it seems like fasting really does help get rid of inflammation in the body. And not all, but it's so many things that are wrong with you, wrong with your body has to do with having too much inflammation, within the body. So definitely a big benefit of intermittent fasting. So quickly, weight loss, increased insulin sensitivity, lowered blood pressure. You pretty much are like preventing metabolic syndrome, blood pressure, cholesterol, going after visceral fat, so many great things of being in a fasted state. And like I said from this other slide, it's not like you have to fast for 24, 36 hours. You can do as little as a 12-hour fast, right? A 16-hour fast. You can mix it up. You can do it once, 2, 3 times a week. If you do it every day, there was time restricted feeding, like I said. There's so many benefits. But I always say, when it comes to all these strategies, and that's what we were talking about with Gene, they all work better, in my opinion, when you're eating a whole natural, different camera angle there if you notice, if you're eating a whole natural food diet. See, my favorite diet is not necessarily keto. I know, but I have done ketogenic like short term, but I like eating a reasonable amount of carbohydrates. My general rule is, let's say you're 150 pounds or less, you keep your carbs at around 100 grams or less. If you're a bigger guy or gal, 150, 200 grams of carbs, or you can just go by a rule, track your calories and carbs, use like MyFitnessPal for a week or two, see where you're at. If you're eating 400 grams of carbs a day, go to 300. But most of your empty calories, most of the food that has no nutrition, that's just sugar, is going to be your carbohydrates, right? Your pasta, your bread, your cookies, your cakes, your junk type food, even your potato chips and your pretzels. Those are the foods, those are the trigger foods. These are the foods you want to eliminate because calories count, right? Food quality counts, and then you have to go through periods where you're in the fasted state food timing. So let's go over some typical meals. Everyone asks me, Mike, what do you mean? See, people get really confused by carbohydrates because there are so many clients I deal with. They don't realize vegetables are carbohydrates, right? They are. Fruits are carbohydrates, but they're the good ones, right? Those high fiber, low calorie type vegetables. And I'm going to change camera angles because I feel like I'm now looking at you. Let me go back to this one. Okay, so this is what I consider. This is how I broke my fast. I think this was last week, and I think this is almost like a perfect way to break my fast. This is like a post-workout meal. I always prioritize protein. Like I say, every single meal has good sources of protein. So I have two. These I always buy my eggs pasture-raised eggs. The reason why you want to buy pasture-raised is that they're higher in the omega-3s, higher in the good quality fats. If you look at these yolks, look at the color of these yolks, man. A nice orange. Now you buy those like factory type eggs. They're like white, the yolks, and there's no, they don't have the good quality fat in it. Yes, I got some bacon here, but this is like uncured, like really good quality bacon. So some nice good protein there. Avocado, I eat an avocado almost every single day. To me, it is the best fruit. I know people think it's a vegetable, but it's a fruit. But it's it's high in healthy fats, high in monounsaturated fat, super high in fiber. See, it's also sometimes I go net carbs, sometimes I go regular carbs when it comes to, people always ask me that. Like net carbs are just total carbs minus fiber. So for example, there are like 20, 25 grams of carbohydrates in an avocado, in a nice size avocado, but you can get 15, 17, 18 grams of fiber. So your net carbs in an avocado are relatively low. So I'm probably only getting 5 net grams of carbs there. Some true keto people, I know we have some keto in the room, they even think net carbs can actually it can mess you up, but it depends how far you want to take it. So avocado here, and then we got tomatoes, another fruit. I guess another good fruit. I guess I got all fruit on the plate here. Some red onions. See, my general rule, I always go with 2 different colors, fruits or vegetable, with every single meal. Different vitamins, different minerals, different nutrients. Right, we got our red tomatoes, red onions, green avocado, and great source of protein. If you notice, there are no grains on this plate. There's no bread, there's no rice, there's no potatoes. This is a relatively low carbohydrate, high protein, good quality fat type meal. I think this is how you should be eating for sure. Let's see, I got some other meals here. Let me just pull up my my tab. Let's see what we got. Let's close this one out. We'll pop this one up. Okay, this. Let me blow this. So I think this was a dinner. Okay, so what we have here is very similar. 2 different colored vegetables. Let me see. See, Iris is here. Where's Iris from? Oh, Germany. Cool, Iris. This is great. Hey, from Germany. Really cool. I just came in. It's 22 hours in Germany. Wow, pretty cool. God bless. Oh yeah, thanks for stopping in. I really appreciate it, Iris. I know you leave a lot of comments on the channel. I really appreciate you tuning in and you're showing up. That's the amazing thing about just the internet, these live streams, people from all over the world. I got a lot of people following me from Germany, from Ireland, from the UK. Maybe, I know if everyone makes fun of my accent, from around here, it seems like people, oh, whoa, everyone's here. This is great, cool. This is how many eggs a day without affecting health in a negative way. I know we discussed this on some comments too. I know you're always leaving some great comments. I really appreciate it. I probably eat eggs 2-3 times a week, and I probably eat like 2 or 3 eggs. I say I probably average 6 eggs a week. If I had to say 6, maybe a little bit more. I personally think eggs is a healthy food. There are some studies out there that say no, but I think there are other reasons why. People it's interesting. Like I just read a study and an article. It was a great article. One of my favorite guys to follow. Everyone should check him out too. Is Peter Attia, and he has a podcast called The Drive. He's a Harvard doctor, brilliant guy. He's specialized in longevity. He has a whole research team, and and there's been some recent research out there saying how skipping breakfast is unhealthy for you. It's gonna decrease your lifespan, right? And he and he looked at the main study they were talking about, and this is what he concluded. He did a 2-part newsletter. You can sign up for a newsletter. It's free. I'll put a link below this. I definitely recommend you do it. It gets a little technical and it gets kind of deep sometimes. Sometimes I listen to his podcast called The Drive, and I gotta look things up for 2 hours afterwards. But he was saying that the people who skip breakfast in this particular study were something like 5 times more likely to be a smoker, because these are just surveys. So he was trying to say that he kind of threw it out, saying that the people who, it's not like when you consciously decide, I'm going to skip breakfast and I'm going to fast for 16 hours a day and I'm going to eat really healthy. That's not the people they were surveying. Generally, a typical person who might be hungover, drink a light sweet cup of coffee in the morning, not have breakfast, and then smoke a pack of cigarettes. I mean, that's going to shorten your lifespan. So a lot of these studies, now I think some eggs might fall into that category to some degree. Let's see. Yeah, I think 1 egg a day is fine. I think there was actually a really good study done by, I forget who did that study, but it was involved with the Heart Association, saying how 1 egg a day doesn't raise cholesterol. I think one hard-boiled egg, I think it's great. I think it's really good. I think I missed a question here. I think Gene has something to say. Love your meal photos. Oh, thanks, Gene. I really appreciate it. Tips for navigating intermittent fasting and Thanksgiving. Yeah, I know. Thanksgiving. It's funny. I did a video a couple of years ago on that. I probably would do I don't know if I would call it Omad, but I would probably either definitely on Thanksgiving Day, whatever is whoever's house you're going to, whether it's your house or their house, I would just have a feasting day. Eat whatever you want, but try to just tighten up the eating window. Let's say give yourself a 4-hour eating window. That's a typical, the amount of time you'll be eating. Fast for 20 hours, eat anything you want during the 4 hours. And then if maybe the next day, maybe do a 24-hour fast, right? Post or post Thanksgiving, or maybe before maybe do a 24-hour fast. Kind of prep yourself. But I think that there are certain days, definitely Thanksgiving. I love Thanksgiving. Maybe my favorite holiday. We generally go to my uncle's. He's got like incredible Italian food. I mean, I don't eat Italian food too much, even though I'm Italian, and I love it. But it's, my favorite, like one of those trigger foods for me is eggplant parmesan. I love it. He'll have a big tray of eggplant parmesan. I'll eat tons of bread. I'll probably drink a little wine. I mean, Thanksgiving, I would eat anything you want, but I would just prepare for it ahead of time by cutting back on calories. Like I said, maybe do an Omad day the day before, maybe do an Omad after, 24-hour fast after, or maybe the whole week, just tighten it up, and then give yourself like a 4-hour eating window, eat anything you want. That's probably what I would do. Let's see what else we got, Gene. Okay, how do you feel about prebiotic supplements like, I don't know if that particular brand of Better 5, I'm sure. I have been told it can help to maintain weight. This is my feeling of prebiotics. You can, that also something like that gets kind of complicated. This is what I personally do. I eat fermented foods every single day because those are fermented foods, feed the good bacteria in your stomach. They're kind of like a prebiotic. So almost every single day, these are some things I do. I do apple cider vinegar every single day. I know I've discussed that and there's some mixed opinion upon it, but I've still been doing it. I do pretty much a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar either right before or right after. I generally do 2 med most days, my meals. I just did it before I did this live stream. That's a nice fermented food. Also, the acidic acid in apple cider vinegar to be showed the lower blood sugar post meal, which could be good. It's like taking berberry. That's another one that really helps low blood sugar. I also eat sauerkraut, not every day, but multiple times. You're going to see I'm going to pull up some pictures of me eating sauerkraut. I eat that constantly. Greek yogurt, I love. To me, it's like a dessert. I eat it occasionally. I know there's a little bit of debate about dairy nowadays, that A1 to A2 dairy. Dr. Gunjri, I follow him. He feels that, A1 dairy, the cows from A1 dairies, there's a mutation, which is not good for you. It causes all these issues. So he only likes A2 dairy, which is like sheep and goat. And I think like northern, like cows from northern Europe, don't have the mutation, but, so, I love a Greek yogurt every now and then. I eat pickles. I love eating pickles. They're like free foods, like no calories, fermented food. I know Dr. Ken Berry loves people drinking pickle juice and things like that. So I think fermented foods, in my opinion, is probably the best way to take in prebiotics. It's good for, you definitely gut health and eliminating leaky gut is an important thing. But sometimes, it can be really expensive to these prebiotics, and sometimes they have to come, refrigerated. And some people like those green drinks, like Green Vibrance. That has tons of prebiotics and probiotics in them. What's the other one? Athletic Greens, it's another one. A lot of people really like those green drinks. I used to take them. I used to spend so much money on supplements. I kind of cut back. Over the years. Yes, for sure. Kefir, definitely. I think it's great prebiotic for sure. Definitely. Sounds good. Yes, love. Oh, I love eggplant parm too, Jen. Yes, that's my go-to meal. Whenever I'm having, I hate to call it a cheat meal because it's not really a cheat meal. It's such good quality food. I just love it. I just calorie-wise, I just have to control myself. So holidays, I'll have it. There's a couple of Italian restaurants. Actually, my wife can make it really good, but you know how hard it is to make that eggplant parm. I like it thin. I don't like it breaded. I like my eggplant parm unbreaded with great sauce and great fresh mozzarella. A client of mine, actually, who used to own like a deli, makes it incredibly well. Every now and then, he'll bring me some, which I love. Okay, Storm. Hey, Storm is in the house too. Hey, good to see you live. Oh, that's great, Storm. I appreciate you showing up. I know you leave some great comments on the channel list too, which is great. Yes. Oh, I appreciate it. That's great. Okay, so let's I'm just quickly. So this was the cauliflower, right? This is my cauliflower, my white vegetable. Tomatoes again. I think this is Arctic chard. My wife likes Arctic chard, which is kind of like a salmon. Nice high omega-3 salmon. Okay, let's pick another one that I've been eating lately. See, now we did that one already. Did that one. Let's see what we got here. This is similar. This is just my formula. I don't know if I'm boring you guys here. Once again, this is that Arctic chard. And actually, this was my first piece of salmon. I typically, I get like 150 grams of protein a day. So I definitely get at least 12, 16 ounces of salmon. I get like 100 grams. A general rule, every 4 ounces of chicken, fish, and meat, about 4 ounces of protein. 25 grams of protein every 4 ounces. So I really do take in probably close to a pound of, I lean towards that pescatarian lifestyle a little bit. I probably a pound of fish almost every single night. String beans, which is green, back with those red tomato. Once again, 2 different colored vegetables. That's why I love to do it. Let me see if I think I got my sardines. Yeah, this is this is one of my classic, like, and now we'll talk about the fermented food. This is one of my classic go-to, like, lunches, or if my wife's out, I'm from business or something and I just want to make myself something quick. I love sardines. To me, I think sardines are one of those, like, superfoods. The reason why they're so good, first of all, great source of protein and inexpensive. I buy the Lisa and Henry's sardines. It's a PBA-free can. I get them in extra virgin olive oil. There's about 25 grams of protein a can. It's like, they're like $3.50 for the can, $3.50 in like New York. In an inexpensive grocery store. I go to this, like, local grocery store. It's crazy. But the sardines, actually in Whole Foods, they sell them for 50 cents more. They're $4 at Whole Foods. So I get them for $3.50. Why I like sardines so much is the high in omega-3s, which is the good essential fatty acids, right? Most people get most of their fat from those omega-6s, which can be inflammatory. You want some omega-6s, but you don't want most of your fat to come from omega-6s. You want more. You want like an even ratio of 3 to 6s. So tons of omega-3 6s. Plus, the good thing about sardines, you're eating the bones inside the sardines. So you're getting calcium from the bones. You're getting the skin. You're getting the connective tissue. It's like eating from head to tail. Like people say it's good to eat head to tail. I'm not big on organs, but I think sardines are getting it a little bit. And then once again, I got my sauerkraut here. Great fermented food. It's like a free food. It's almost no calories. Get the cabbage, the fermentation of the cabbage. Bubba's. I love the Bubba's brand. That's my favorite. A little expensive, but I absolutely love it. Blueberries, when it comes to fruits, by far my favorite. It's low sugar fruit, high in polyphenols, all the good stuff. Blueberries, the dark pigment there. Once again, avocado, which I love. And see, to me, 26 grams of protein is not quite enough. So we had chicken. These are just leftover chicken thighs from the night before. So I'm probably getting in a good 50 grams of protein right here. So like if I had this, for example, for lunch, and then we went with one of these other ones for dinner, like, let me see, like something like this, I got my 150 grams of protein for the day. And this is how you should eat. Relatively low carb, whole natural food diet. A good amount of vegetables. I've probably taken 25, 30 grams of fiber. Some people don't like fiber. I still do like it. I think it's important. It feeds the good bacteria in your stomach. It helps you with your bowel movements. And you have to be a little careful, I find, with this intermittent fasting stuff. Some people, just like anything, you like to work out, you probably work out too much, right? You really start getting into fasting, and a lot of people get caught. They just take it too far. They fast too much. They want to malnourish. I think it's an amazing thing, but you still have to eat, and especially you have to eat good quality food, especially if you're limiting your eating window, especially if you're doing like Omad, especially if you're fasting for 20 hours, especially if you're doing like alternate day fasting. When you do eat, you want the vitamins, you want the minerals, you want the nutrients, like potassium. You're supposed to get the adequate intake of potassium is over 4,000 milligrams a day. You know what that is? Like a banana, 100 calories is 400. It's like eating 12 bananas to get your adequate intake of potassium. So besides these 2 meals, I should have pulled a picture of it. Another thing I do, I drink celery juice almost every single day. Like celery juice, and I buy the Evolutions brand. It's called, what's the name of it? I think it's called Celery Juice. And I generally get it at Whole Foods. It's 16 ounces. They typically sell for $5 each, but they're on sale consistently at Whole Foods, 2 for $7. So for $3.50, I drink like a 15, 16 ounce fresh squeeze, like only celery juice with a teeny bit of lime. It's only 35 calories, almost like, so really low in carbs. And it has like 1,000 milligrams of potassium. So I'm getting 25% of my potassium for 35 calories. Then that avocado that I eat every single day, that's like 900. So right there, I got my 2,000 milligrams of potassium. See, a lot of people get caught with this intermittent fast. They don't get enough potassium. They don't get enough magnesium. They don't drink enough water even. You get caught. Let's see, we got some other questions. That's what we got. As it turned out, oats contain. acid, which not only prevents the calcium contained in oats from being absorbed, but even washes away calcium. Yeah, I know. Hey, there's a lot of ways you can run into trouble out there. I don't need. I know we talked about it in your last comment yesterday. I don't. I mean, everyone. I love oatmeal, but I don't want too many carbs. So occasionally I do. Like I was talking about, the only time I generally eat oatmeal is if I kind of feel flat. And this is what I mean by flat. And this is a term that maybe like a bodybuilder would use, or a one of those physique athletes. Like, since I eat a relatively low carbohydrate meal, carbohydrates are stored in your muscles, like we always talk about, in the form of glycogen. And there's a 4-to-1 ratio, or 3-to-1 ratio of water retention to carbohydrate storage. So like if you want like a good pump in the gym, you want to lose muscle, that's why creatine volumizes the muscle cell. The more creatine you hold in your muscle, the more water you hold. Like, you can take creatine and in like 1 week gain 3-4 pounds and look a lot more muscular. Same thing with carbohydrates. When you're eating very, very low carb and then you have a carb day, it volumizes your muscle cell. It gives you a lot of energy in the gym. So if I feel like I do a workout, like say I do a resistance training workout, and I do a lot of metabolic stress type training, meaning that I like to pump the muscle up. Since I'm 59, I'm a little banged up from surfing all over the world, from skiing, from skateboarding, I rode motocross as a kid. I got injuries all over the place that I work around. So I like to lift light to moderate weights most of the time. I like to pump myself up, metabolic stress. If I go to the gym and I feel like I can't get a pump, and I see my veins are kind of flat, and I just feel it, that I'm a little too low, in my opinion, on carbohydrates. I'm almost like in ketosis, like type of a state. So every now and then, if I feel that's going on, after a workout, I may have a nice portion of oatmeal. I'll put some ground flaxseed on there. I may even cut up a banana or something and put some cinnamon on there. And since I'm eating this like right after my workout, I'm hoping those carbs, and there's still relatively good carbs, oats. There is some good stuff in oats too. I'm hoping those carbs go right into my muscles in the form of glycogen and just volumize my muscle cells. But this is something that I definitely would not do every day, because that might be like 50 grams of carbs right there, or 25, 50 grams of carbs, and that's could be half my carbs for the day. So I'll do that occasionally. Years ago, when I was in my 20s and 30s, I ate oatmeal every single day. I mean, I was eating more of a high carb diet, and I had low body fat levels when I ate high carb. I always kept protein high and ate low fat, but I have to say, I was hungry all the time, always wanted to eat. My blood work wasn't as good, even though I was younger. Like, my triglycerides are higher. I think it's healthier for most people to do a relatively low carb, whole natural food diet for sure. Let me say, I think I missed some questions. Let's see what Gene's got here. Okay, from Dr. Barry, advocating for the carnivore diet. Dr. Londa advocating for pescatarian diet. Sometimes I know it's so crazy. It's interesting. Ken Berry had an interesting progression, because I really like him. He's smarter than me, smart guy, doctor. He seems like he really helps a lot of people. He had an interesting progression. He went from more like being an overweight type doctor, prescribing like a low fat, high carb type food. Didn't see the results for himself or his clients. Then I think he went like paleo, right? He started with paleo, did pretty good. Then I think he went keto, and now he's like carnivore, and he loves it. And it's fun. I watch him from time to time. He does a lot of lives on Facebook, and he's telling me he's telling like people that are watching him on Facebook, saying how his wife thinks he's getting too thin. He looks great. I mean, he's a smart guy. It's interesting. And then Dr. Walter, the longevity diet, he's the guy that does the fasting mimicking diet, which actually one of my clients just ordered the Pro line. Now she's going to do it for like 5 days. He has this thing where you order this food, and it's like, he says it's the same thing as doing a water fast for 5 days. He thinks it's just like all these benefits we talked about, autophagy and lowering, blood pressure and triglycerides and all these, like reversing metabolic syndrome. He thinks doing a 5-day water fast will get you those results if you do it consistently, like once a month or once a quarter. But he thinks it's too aggressive. It's just too difficult for most people to do. So he designed this thing called, I think it's called Proline, where you get these packaged foods come to your house for 5 days, and you're eating a relatively low calorie, like 500 calories a day. I think 500 to 700 calories a day. But the type of foods are like lower in protein. He doesn't want that mTOR. He doesn't want that growth signaling. He wants that autophagy. He wants you to be in repair mode. So it's pretty much a plant-based, low-calorie type meal plan for 5 days. And he thinks it's incredible for improving health. Really interesting, but obviously it's the complete opposite of what like 𝘾𝙃𝙃𝙃𝙃 would say you should do, because he's not worried about mTOR. He's not worried about the growth. He loves the idea of keeping insulin levels low, eating extremely low carb, being in and out of ketosis, so kind of different points of views, but hey, so many things work. Like I said, 3 things you got to focus on. Definitely calories, right? You got to keep an eye on how much food you eat. You can't gorge yourself with food, even if it's good, healthy food, right? Second thing, food quality. That could be maybe the most confusing for people. Like, I think my diet that I just explained, which is a relatively low-carb, whole natural food diet, kind of falls into the paleo kind of thing, maybe a little lower in carbs than maybe a paleo, maybe a little higher in protein, so it kind of leans into that carnivore. It's not that longevity diet, but Dr. Longo wouldn't tell you to do this every single day. He would want you to do more like a 14-hour fast, eating like just a natural, healthy diet, maybe 3 weeks out of a month, and then maybe doing this 5-day fasting mimicking diet like once, 5 days out of a month or out of a quarter. So I know it can be confusing, but also you got to work on calories, food quality, and then food timing. Experiment. You have to go through periods of the day where you're in a fasted state. Let's see what else we got here. Okay, Gene. The fasting mimicking diet costs $300. I know it is expensive. A water fast, I know. It's interesting. My wife, not my wife, my client Taylor, she was in my gym, and we actually looked it up, and we found it for $189 US. Maybe he's running a sale now or something. Maybe with Thanksgiving, the holidays coming up, it's probably worth $189. It's funny because I don't do this stuff. I really should. This thing's called like an affiliate program where, like, if I recommend it, I can get a commission. I've never done anything like that, but look around. It might be on sale now. My clients can order it. My clients of mine have done it in the past, and I've tasted some of the bars. It tastes good. I mean, it's much easier than doing a 5-day water fast. In my opinion, to a 5-day water fast, I think you should really work with a doctor if you're going to fast for 5 days, because you don't want to run into trouble. You never know. And you got to make sure you're taking in the electrolytes, you're taking in sodium, you're staying properly hydrated. I think anyone could do like a 36-hour fast, even a 48-hour fast. You start getting into those extended fasts, those 3 to 5 day fasts. I think you should do it under a doctor's supervision, or you can join like Dr. Jason Fung's, one of his groups, or there are guys or gals out there that have these more like medically structured like groups you can join in. I don't think it's that expensive either. Let's see what we got. One cannot see the trees. Yes, I know. In the woods sometimes. Yes, I agree. That's so true. No doubt. All right. So how long have we been on? 1:14. This is great. I feel like I was a little tight when we first started this live stream because I had all those sound troubles. This is like the second time it happened. It threw me off. It took me like 10 minutes to get the sound to work. So I feel like the beginning of this live stream wasn't as good, but I feel like I warmed up a little bit towards the end. So let's see. Any other questions? We got any other questions out there before I go? It could be fitness, health, weight loss, anything. All right, I really appreciate it. I'll talk for another minute too, because I know sometimes it takes. I think this live stream has like a solid 60-second, 90-second delay. But I have to say, I got a lot of my regulars here. I really appreciate everyone tuning in and leaving comments and supporting the channel. I'm really trying to grow my channel. I can't get to 10,000 subscribers. I don't know what I'm doing, but I really love putting out all this content. It's great to see you live. Oh yeah, I really appreciate it too, V. Yeah, no, I really appreciate you showing up. You're one of my mates. You've been with me one of the longest ones, leaving great comments. Real thought. I feel like we're on the same page in a lot of things. I know you're into fitness. I think we're close. I'm older than you a little bit, but I think we're relatively in the same generation and mindset, even though we're in different parts of the world, which is so cool, which is good. I know you're a fitness guy. I know you love to work out and eat healthy. Yeah, what do you think about dumbbell flies? I think the shearing force is pretty great. Unfortunately, with the dumbbell flies, I don't do them anymore, and they used to be one of my favorite exercises. And I'll tell you what I substituted with them. See, dumbbell flies, unfortunately, just think, when you're out this wide, the shearing force, like your pec, is trying to pull your humerus into the joint at the same time your humerus is trying to slide out of the joint. So I don't do them anymore. A lot of shearing force. Plus, but with me, it's a little different. I tore, snowboarding about 15 years. No, it's even longer. This is before my kids were born. 20 years ago, took a horrible fall snowboarding in Breckenridge, right? really, and I fell forward. Luckily, and this is when I was really muscular back then too. I put my arms out, dislocated my shoulder dislocated, and I put it in myself. Like it was like, oh my God. And I yanked my shoulder, clicked it in, and I wound up tearing the labrum in my shoulder. My shoulder was never the same. Unfortunately, after the trip, this is when I was like young and I'm smart, bench pressing 275, in pain. I wound up with like supraspinatus. I went up with tendonitis that was turned into tendinosis, plus a torn labrum in my shoulder. So I definitely can't do dumbbell flies. And I very rarely recommend to everyone. But what you can do, I don't know if you have access to this, is a cable crossover machine, which will do a very similar design, with the cable, like a cable crossover, or those free motion machines where, see, it's interesting, when gravity's coming from here and you're bringing it in here, okay, it's going to be heavy. It's like the maximal tension is going to be when your hands are close together, not when you're out here in a shearing position. Like a dumbbell fly, the weight is balanced when it's in front of you. It's heaviest when it's out here. So I don't do dumbbell flies anymore. It's too much shearing force. In fact, I do very little barbell chest work for the same reason. And look at it like this. When you have your hands fixed on a barbell and you're bench pressing, right? What really wants to happen is your hands want to slide together. Because, right, your pec attaches to your sternum, right? Your clavicle and your humerus. On the outside of your humerus, so it also wants to internally rotate your humerus, your shoulder, as you press it. When your hand is fixed on a barbell, your hands want to slide together, because that's how the pec works, right? Horizontal adduction. They can't slide because they're stuck on a bar. So the shearing force is also much greater when you're doing a barbell as opposed to a dumbbell. When you're doing a dumbbell, you can bring your hands in and the shearing force is less. And I'm not saying that shearing force is necessarily, some shearing force is fine. But if there's anything going on with your shoulder, or like with me, with my torn labrum and the tendonitis and otitis that I've had over the years, I do most of my chest work with dumbbells and like dumbbell pressing. I can do flat and incline and decline, and I can do cable crossover, and I do some cable work. And I do end range. I'll also check out your questions in a second. I also do end range isometric position strengthening, meaning like this. This is a cool thing to do. I got some videos on this too. You see, it helps my shoulder. Since your pec does horizontal adduction and internal rotation, that's what I'll do. I'll internally rotate and I'll push this hand into here and I'll hold this. And I'm not going that hard. What I'm doing is I'm strengthening a position of weakness, the end range. This gets a little confusing. Once the muscle, that sliding filament theory is, once the muscles contract, the more they contract, those intrafusal fibers sometimes get inhibited. So when you do an isometric contraction at the end range of a motion, you'll reprogram it like your central nervous system to recognize that position and strengthen that position. This has a lot to do with, I never ever talked about this. I have some older videos on this. I'm also an MAT specialist, standing for Muscle Activation Techniques, which like, it's a combination of isometrics with like neurological muscle testing. And what we do is that we make sure that muscles are functioning properly. So we look for positions of weakness, and muscles generally get weak at the end range of motion when a muscle contracts. I know it's a little confusing. I'm going to do some more videos about it, but let me check out some of your questions. Okay. So let's see. Let me back scroll. One cannot see the truth. Let me go back to your shoulder. Okay, because I don't want to miss your question. Oh, thanks, Gene. I appreciate it. Yeah, you also feel it lately. Yeah, I know. Flies are rough. Dumbbell flies are rough. Even a pec deck can be a little bit better. I love push-ups. I love push-ups too. Push-ups do a similar thing though to having your hand fixed on a barbell. But since your body weight is less and it's just a natural movement, I do push-ups as well. I do push-ups. I do flat push-ups. It's interesting. I have the ganglia cyst on my wrist. I like to use those push-up stands so I can keep my wrist straight. Sometimes I even tape my wrist. But I love push-ups too. I'll do incline, decline. I do tons of push-ups myself. Okay, I love it. Let's see. Nope. So you work out at home, so you don't have the cable crossover. But what you could do too is you can buy those bands. You know, I like Spree. SPRI, they're like $15 a band. Sometimes you get them myself for $10, but I would probably get two. You know, with the anchors. I'm gonna do some videos on this too, where you anchor them on a doorway, and then you can do a nice fly with those. You can also do like those standing pullovers. Like I love pre-exhaustion. You know, the old Arthur Jones, like Nautilus. Yeah, let me get rid of this because then I can talk to you about it. You know those Arthur Jones, the whole pre-exhaustion concept where first you do a motion that isolates a muscle, and then you do a compound motion, meaning that like when you're training your chest, sometimes what gives away, like when you're doing a push-up or when you're doing a bench press, is your triceps because they're weaker and smaller. But if you first did a fly, which doesn't really work your triceps, and then quickly went to a push-up, you can pre-exhaust, you know, and get a great pump in your chest. So if you had those cables with the bands, you do a set of flies, no rest, right to the floor, do a set of push-ups. Right? Or same thing, like if you're doing a pullover, right? You know, a cable pullover, which really hits the lats but doesn't hit the biceps, and then go to a rowing motion, you can really pump up the lats without burning out the biceps, because the biceps are always, like when you're doing pull-ups and rows, it's always the biceps that really give away, or your grip strength before you really exhaust the back. Same thing with your chest. It's generally always your triceps, your anterior delt that gives away before the chest gives away. Let me see. Oh, you sold your barbell. Only done. Oh yeah, no, I think it's all you need. 99% of the people, that's all you need. I think the bands for a home gym, you know, a bench. It'd be cool if it was adjustable, but even if it isn't, a set of dumbbells. I love those Bowflex dumbbells that you can dial up different weights, and then I think a few of those inexpensive bands. And another thing, and I'm going to talk about this more and more. I mentioned it earlier. I've been fooling around with that blood flow restriction, and I think it's really something, you know, where you occlude the limb. You can buy them on like Amazon. I have the expensive system with the 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂, which is like 700-800, which kind of like it electronically occludes the limb. Like you take these bands. They're great for arm training, great for training your legs. I know I talk about I got this really bad knee from an operation, so upsetting to me. My knee, I used to squat 400 pounds, 405 pounds. Now my knee bothers me all the time. But I put these bands, like if I'm training my biceps, not all the time, but pretty regularly. And I like occlude blood flow about 70%, meaning that I let the blood go into my bicep. But since I have this band on, it somewhat gets trapped. And it has, and it doesn't, a little bit comes out, like it minimizes that venous blood return to the heart. So metabolites build up, like the lactate. So you can literally, like say you can curl 30-pound dumbbells for say 15 reps. You put these bands on, and you can buy them on Amazon for like $20. Peter T has been doing a lot too. The guy I was talking about, that Harvard professor. And you can take 10-pound dumbbells and get like a killer pump in your body. I mean, the burn, you'll love it. I mean, be a little careful with it. You have to do something called capillary refill. Like if you put it here just to make sure you don't make them too tight. If you're making them too tight, and like you take the palm of your hand and you squeeze, and that white spot doesn't come back within like a second or two, you're wearing them too tight. It's called capillary refill. Same thing with your legs. If you're putting, I put them on my upper thighs, and I'll literally take a 20-minute walk. Or I'll go on like the Stairmaster in my gym at a low level, and I'll get a great pump in my leg, you know, at a very low tension without hurting my knee. I think it's going to get really big, this blood flow restriction training. It's going to be tremendous for rehab, like post-op. It's going to be great for older people. It's going to be great for guys like me who's got like a chronically bad knee from a messed up knee operation. I think it's great. I would experiment with it. I'm going to do some more videos. I did one video on it maybe a year ago. But I'm gonna start talking about it more and more. Let's see what we got. Shearing force. Shearing force are often not great. Yeah, no, I agree. They're not great, but you know, there's always a little bit of shearing force. There's always going to be, because muscles are pulling. When your shoulder, especially, that's the first place most people hurt. Even when you're doing something perfect, there's going to be a little shear, but a little shear is okay. But things like flies, dumbbell flies, I think are really rough. Or things like behind the head shoulder presses, barbell. Really rough on the shoulder too. Things like that. Let's see Arthur Jones. He was rough. He was rough. But yeah, no, he was a wild man. He had like a whole, remember that thing? I think he had something like, I don't know, he would have like, I think he had like a zoo or something at his house. I think he was an interesting guy. I don't know too much about him. It's interesting. One of my original, I was, okay, when I graduated college, after I graduated, I thought I was going to go back to school. I was going to become a chiropractor. So I went back and did all my pre-med type of thing. And I had this professor one time in, I think it was at Delphi. He was exercise physiology. He had his master's degree, and I was in this course. And he personally knew Arthur Jones, and he'd been to his place, and he was involved in like designing the machinery. Really interesting. That was the first gym I ever joined. I was like 15 years old. This is like 1977 maybe, or something like that. Was an Arthur Jones gym. And he was so ahead of his time. He really invented that high-intensity training. I remember going to that gym. We would do one brutally hard set, move to the next machine. Really, really interesting, Arthur Jones. Yeah, behind the neck shoulder presses. It's amazing how you see people on YouTube constantly doing it, but I would never do them. Just think, it's like you're forcing yourself. Most people don't have that external rotation. Most people can't comfortably get their hands behind their head. But imagine taking a barbell, loading it up, and just forcing. You always want to stay within your active ranges of motion. Whenever you're lifting weights or doing resistance training, you never want the weight to put you into a position of instability. And so many people train like that. Even something like a bench press. Like you want to, let's say you're doing a dumbbell bench press. This is what you got. See, this is what I have. But if I had a 50-pound dumbbell and I let that dumbbell rip me, 20 degrees beyond my active range, that's when you run into trouble. So you always want to train within your active range. That's why I wouldn't do like a behind the neck shoulder press. I wouldn't even do a lat pull down behind my head, because my normal flexion of my shoulders is maybe just slightly behind my head. So I wouldn't want to have weight force me into a position of instability. I'm sorry, I know the camera's up there, so I'm looking down a little bit so I can see this. Okay, what supplements am I taking now? Okay, this is what I take now. I always take a multivitamin. My favorite brand is probably that Thorne, Thorne. That's the stuff that, whenever they're third-party tested, they always like whatever's on the labels in there. And it's just your general, it's called Basic 2. So I take 2 Thorne vitamins a day. They're a little bit more expensive. I want to save some money. There's another multivitamin I like called Alive. It's in the States. I just get it at a health food store nearby. That's only 1 a day. It's just your typical, the thing I look for is I don't want, I want folate. I don't want folic acid. So, that B vitamin, that's an important one for me. The other thing I always take fish oil. I know you may not like the fish oil, but I do. I take a tablespoon of that Collagen fish oil every single day. I take, collagen protein powder just about every day. I have to say, I really found a difference. I was getting, I take about 20 grams of that. I was getting those cracks in my nails, those old man nails. I have to say, after taking that collagen protein, within 2 to 4 weeks, all the cracks in my nails went away. I think it's good. I think it's good for skin, hair, connective tissue. I don't necessarily eat, besides those sardines or even chopped meat, you get some connective tissue. I don't really eat too much, cartilage. I don't have chicken soups. I don't really drink. I have drank in the bone broth in the past, but it's so expensive. The bone broth, but you buy a little container of it, it's $5. It's so I don't do the bone broth. I do the multivitamin. I do the oil. I take a little bit of magnesium citrate every day, either 200 to 400 milligrams, generally 200. If anything, if my system leads anyway, I lean a little bit towards constipation. Every now and then I get caught. I find that magnesium citrate really helps, just taking 200 milligrams of that every single day. Let me see. I do the apple cider vinegar. I know you're not crazy about that, but I do that. Let's see. For sure works for many. Yeah, no, I like the fish oil. I do, and I think that's a good brand. My blood work's always great, whenever I do my blood work. Let me think what else I take from time to time. I don't really take any. I get plenty of fiber. I was taking some silicon husks, but I stopped doing that because I feel like I'm getting enough fiber from my diet. I really don't take too much supplements. But in the past, I would try everything. I haven't taken creatine in years, but I have to say there really is a lot of research on creatine. I did a couple of videos on it that, it works. There's no question about it. None of my clients are on it. It's probably the most studied supplement. It really does help you make ATP. It's that second energy system, all, like I talked earlier, all muscle contraction is fueled by ATP, adenosine triphosphate. Okay, so when you use, and 5 to 7 seconds of ATP is always stored within the muscle. After you use up that 5 to 7 seconds of ATP, you go into that phosphocreatine phase where creatine, like adenosine diphosphate, right, so that ATP can turn into ADP, picks up a phosphate molecule to make ATP. And that's like the next 30 seconds of muscle contraction. So if you take creatine, you're going to have like a bigger creatine storage to make ATP faster. You're definitely stronger. But I eat a good amount of fish and salmon and meat. So I'm getting a reasonable amount of creatine from my diet. But there's even some evidence that say it's good for depression, good for the brain, creatine. Maybe I'll take it again. I don't know. I try to minimize the amount of supplements I'm taking. Let's see. Taking K2. I think K2 is good. It's in those vitamins I'm talking about. Yeah, I think K2 is great. Vitamin D. Sometimes I take extra vitamin D only. See, I'm pretty tan. Like I walked today. I was outside walking. I'm outside all the time. I walk constantly. So I feel like my vitamin D levels are always good. But in the winter time, I may take some vitamin D or something like that. Hey, what's up, Brian? Good to see you in here. Let's see. Brian, what do you do? Okay, Mike, what way do you take apple cider vinegar and what time of the day is best? Okay, for me, I generally do 2 mad most of the time, unless I'm taking a diet break. And the research is showing most people take it like right before they eat, but sometimes I take it after. So what I like to do, I drink a lot of Pellegrino mineral water, because every liter of Pellegrino mineral water has about 50 milligrams of magnesium. Like I said, and the average intake, the adequate intake of magnesium is 400. So I drink a couple of liters of Pellegrino every day. So I take a big glass of Pellegrino water, a good amount, because that apple cider vinegar can burn your esophagus. It's rough. It's not easy to drink. And don't drink it straight, because you can burn your throat. It's funny. I watched an episode of the Shark Tank, that crazy show where entrepreneurs come on, and there was someone there like marketing, trying to raise money for their like apple cider vinegar pills or something, and they had all the people on, all the experts who were going to back them. Like they tricked them into drinking the apple cider vinegar, and you had to look at the looks on their face. It's really, really harsh. So I take a tablespoon of apple cider vinegar in 16 ounces of Pellegrino water, but you can mix it in anything. And I drink it either right before a meal or right after. And there really is some pretty good research that it definitely controls, like you won't get as big of a spike of blood sugar. And I've heard that a couple of different mechanisms for that. Some people feel that it slows down the digestive process a little bit, so you don't get much of a blood spike. So that's definitely, might be a good thing to do especially if you're having like a high carb type meal, like if you're eating pasta that night. I know it doesn't really go with pasta, so maybe you'd want to do it afterwards. Plus, who's really into this apple cider vinegar? That guy Thomas DeLore, that big muscular guy who he was 300 pounds. Now he's like 200 pounds and shredded. And he's got like 2 million followers on YouTube. We do a lot of similar videos on intermittent fasting and all that type and low carb eating. He's a big believer in apple cider vinegar. Berberry too works really well. Same thing, helps control blood sugar. So I would do that if you want to try it. I don't think it'll hurt you. Some people have mixed feelings about it, but I think a couple tablespoons twice a day with 2 meals I think would be fine. Some people like to do it. Some people feel it doesn't break a fast. So some people, I know Thomas DeLore talks about, he likes to just drink it during his fasting period. He'll just drink it with water. He thinks it suppresses his appetite. It definitely has an interesting taste to it. And it's not necessarily, the confusing thing about apple cider vinegar is you can almost get the same benefit from balsamic vinegar, because it's really the acidic acid, and not necessarily they say the mother of the apple cider vinegar. It's not really the mother. There may be some benefits to that. It's really the acidic acid. So Dr. Gundry, I'm back to Dr. Gundry now, who wrote those books, the Pant Paradox and the Longevity Paradox. He has all these, that's his coin thing, Paradox. He's the doctor who made like lectins very popular, like the lectins in vegetables are bad for you, they're toxic and all that. His trick is he likes to take balsamic vinegar and pour that in like a Pellegrino and drink that instead of like soda with like a celery stick or something. I've tried it. It's actually pretty good. So literally sometimes if you're having, say, a salad to start your meal with a good amount of balsamic vinegar in it, like extra virgin olive oil and balsamic vinegar, you're kind of getting that same acidic acid, which can help you control blood sugar in a meal, which is kind of cool. Let's see. I feel bad with creatine, pressure around the head. Yeah, if your kidneys are functioning normally, just from all the studies I read about it, it seems to be okay. But hey, like anything, also the big thing about these supplements is you never know really, if you're getting something. That's why I like those thorn vitamins, because they're tested constantly by third parties. You never know quite what you're getting. You're definitely going to hold water with creatine. There's no doubt about it. So some people, like personally, when I took it many years ago, I didn't like how my face looked, because I felt like my face got a little fuller looking. I didn't really like it. That's why women don't like it, because women don't want to gain weight. You're going to gain 3-4 pounds from creatine for sure. Just like, when you volumize your muscle cell with carbs, you fill up your muscles with creatine, you're gonna gain 3-4 pounds of water weight. But that's why some guys love it. And it looks like muscle because it's in the muscle cell. It makes the muscle cell bigger, plumper. So that's why people love it. You see. Okay, apple cider vinegar. Interesting, but my esophagus says, yeah, I know. It's true. It can be a little harsh. So even Brian, I mean, if you want to, just don't burn yourself with it. Maybe start with like just a teaspoon at first in some water and see how you feel. And you get up to it. But the the studies are more around like a tablespoon or 2 a day. They say to really help control blood sugar. Oh. Yeah, bloated face. Yeah. No, creatine will do that to you for sure. All right, guys. Any other questions? I'm glad you guys are hanging in there. This is maybe one of my longest ones. Okay. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate you once again. I really appreciate the support. The support and everyone showing up. And if you know anyone in my videos can help, share my videos. Help me grow the channel if you don't mind. I really want to get to, before the end of the year, 10,000 subs. It seems like that this YouTube algorithm doesn't really start paying attention to you until you get to about 10,000 subs. So if you feel my videos can help anyone, let me know. And also, I'm in a little bit of a torn between. I like talking about like the fitness end of things, like about working out and all that. But it seems like lately with my channel that if I don't do a video on intermittent fasting, it bombs. Like everyone's, like most people now who follow me are interested in intermittent fasting, which I love and obviously I believe in. But I want to broaden my channel and really start talking about these fitness things and give workout advice. So let me know, whenever you can, if I do a post or I do a video, let me know the type of videos you would like me to make. I recently did a survey in the post section. I'm trying to figure out everyone's age too, because I'm really trying to appeal to people like 40 and over. Everyone is welcome, obviously, but I feel like since I'm 59, maybe people 40 and over will relate to me better. So if you can give me any insight on the type of content that you want me to put out there, just let me know. Okay, I really would appreciate it. Okay, wall squat. Okay, let's see what we got here. It's funny because a wall squat will put shearing force on the knees. See, it's hard to see it, but see, when you're in a wall squat, okay, your back's against the wall, right? Your hips 90 degrees, your knees are 90 degrees. You're almost on. It's like doing a leg extension, right? A leg extension machine. Because you can't engage your glutes and your hips and your butt. They're on the slack because you're not leaning forward. See, when you're doing a body weight squat and you're leaning forward, see, there's elastic energy. When you elongate a muscle, it becomes more active. It's the exact opposite of what I was talking about before, right? When a muscle completely contracts, it loses its communication capability. It almost gets weaker when it's fully contracted. But when it's elongated, right, when it's being stretched, it wants to snap back. In a wall squat, since you're not leaning forward, you're not really engaging your glutes. You're really doing all quads. And from the angle, it's creating like the knee wants to slide forward. So a wall squat will put a good amount of shearing force on the knee. It can bother people. That's why sometimes you see in gyms like older people, like people say, "Oh, I gotta do a wall squat." You're better off doing a wall squat with one of those big balls, because when the big physio balls, because then you can kind of get your butt underneath it and engage your glutes a little bit. So I'm not crazy about wall squats. Occasionally I'll do them. Sometimes I'll have some of my clients do them, but I generally don't do wall squats too often. Some people like them, like skiers seem to like them because it just kind of simulates the static motion of being in like a ski position. But even then, you're not skiing with your back. You're skiing, you're involving your glutes so much. A wall squat doesn't hit the glutes. It's really like it's almost like a sissy squat. You know, when you really isolate your quads. You know, when you like lean back into a sissy squat, puts a lot of pressure on the knees, does hit the quadriceps really well though. But I think a lot of shearing force on the knees. Hey Brian, you know, Brian, I don't know. I really want to come up with a set time. You know, that's my whole thing with YouTube too. My whole schedule is still, all my income comes from my gym. The reason why I was able to go on today, 4 o'clock New York time, is because my late afternoon clients, I normally have a client at like 5 o'clock today, and he canceled, so I was able to do this kind of like I programmed it yesterday. I don't know. I'm really going to try to do it. I may want to go with like a Saturday. I generally work Saturday mornings. I may go with maybe like Sunday morning-ish. That's why I always also like to know where everyone's coming from. I know Germany is different. I know I typically always have a couple of guys I know from Ireland that would show up. And I have this woman that always shows up too. She's in the UK, but I know it's too late for them. They're probably all sleeping, so they probably missed this live stream. I'm not sure, but I really would love to just have a consistent schedule, go live once a week. I also want to take people's questions ahead of time so I really can prepare. And sometimes these, like my last live, it was so much work, and I feel like people are less interested in the studies. I thought they would be really interested in these studies, but I did so much talking about it last time, and no one really responded to it. So maybe people aren't really interested in seeing the studies and me breaking them down. Would rather me just casually mention them. But I think I'm going to go live either Saturday or Sunday once a week, and then I'd like to put out just 2 videos, like my normal 5 to 10 minute videos a week, or 1 video. And I've been fooling around with my podcast. I know you guys may know I have this Fitness Contrarian podcast. I used to have a very popular blogging website called Fitness Contrarian about 10 years ago, and it got like attacked, like malware, and I lost control of it. It was crazy, and I wound up just losing the site. I just couldn't never get it back online. But I did start a podcast called Fitness Contrarian, where I talk about more fitness things. It's hard for me to find the time to do it. I was thinking about maybe doing one, just maybe 30-minute, like just me talking like this, podcast type thing, and filming it, and maybe doing that maybe once a week. So maybe 1 YouTube video, 1 live stream, either 1 more podcast video, or just 2 regular YouTube videos, maybe 1 on intermittent fasting and then 1 on maybe working out. I still have to figure out exactly who my audience are. I know you guys are my audience because you guys always leave comments and make things. It's hard to figure out who's watching my videos so I can really gear it towards them. I'm really looking to reach like fitness enthusiasts who want to eat healthy, like healthy lifestyle for people over 40. That's who I'm trying to reach. I'm not sure who I'm reaching. It's a little bit of an issue. Let's see. Okay, I appreciate your research. I'm looking up all these. Oh, thanks. 20 hours looking up. I know, it was crazy because I broke down. I don't know if you watched that one again. It's kind of long. I broke down 7 studies in the live stream, but I must have read 2 dozen. And it's hard reading these studies. It was hours of work, and then I don't know. I mean, I learned a lot from it. So I like doing that type of stuff, but I feel like it was maybe people aren't interested in looking at the study on screen and me really breaking it down. I'd rather just give the 2-minute takeaway, so. And I've done that in my videos too. My videos where I talk about studies don't seem to do as well as when I like tell a story about one of my clients who had an experience with something. Those seem to do a little bit better. Like a couple of videos ago, I had a guy who, he wasn't a middle-aged guy who overdid it with fasting. He was doing alternate day fasting. He already was in pretty good shape, and I thought he was relatively lean. And he said, "No, Mike, I really want to get like down to like 12% body fat. I want to see my abs." And he's a middle-aged guy like me, and he started doing alternate day fasting every other day, and it didn't work out for him. All of a sudden, I just saw it. He started getting weaker in the gym. He lost his strength. He just didn't feel good. And he just overdid it. It just wasn't right. So then we switched him over to more like a typical 16.8, 18.6, and he bounced right back. He was bigger and stronger than ever. Took him a few weeks, but you got to be careful with this intermittent fasting stuff. You got to, it's that optimal dose, and it's not like when it comes to this fasting, it's not like it's been studied to the point where, you take a medication, you take a blood pressure medication, right? There's been hundreds of studies, and take this exact dose, and this is supposed to happen. Take 40 milligrams or 50 milligrams. Intermittent fasting, it's been around forever historically, but it's hard to figure out what the optimal dose is for what you're looking to do. And it's not just a fasting; it's in conjunction with a proper diet. It could be. Hey, that's why I'm making all these videos. It's hard to figure it out, right? Let's see what Brian got. Okay. Keep up the good work, Mike. Your information is priceless. I really appreciate it. Thanks. For me, it's helped me losing weight and getting fit. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Brian. Thanks for tuning in. I really, this is what keeps me going doing this, because, I must have 400 videos on the YouTube channel, and I still haven't really taken off yet. But I really do like making them, and I love doing the live streams. The live streams, to me, except for that one that I do the research, it's really fun. I love talking to everyone. Let's see. There we go. Mutual support. I really appreciate it. All right, guys. I feel like my throat is getting hoarse. I really appreciate you tuning in, and this has been wonderful. All right. Take care, everyone. Have a good night, and we'll do this in another week or so. And if you have any questions that you want me to answer before, let me know. Just leave a comment on maybe my last video, or if you want to email, my email is 𝘾𝙊𝘾𝙃𝙄𝙉𝙂.com. You can always email me anytime with any questions you guys have or gals have. All right? Take care, everyone. I really appreciate it. You tuning in. Thanks.